All right, Gerald Prince Miller. I'm glad to have you on Camp Capone News.
Good to be here.
Man, that's what's up, man. Well, let's start off with your book and your website you have out. We can get into documentary and everything a little bit later, but can you let the people know about, where they can find your book and your website and a little bit about it?
No question. Thanks for asking. My website is www.princemillernyc.com, and on that website, you'll be able to see where the book pre-orders of the book can be purchased, and also you can also get to the documentary from there, which is on Vimeo. Everything is on the website, and you'll learn some things about me as well.
What all can they expect from this book?
Well, the book starts off when I'm 10 years old. It gets into a lot of questions that some of the questions that I'm gonna answer with you. And it's a good book. It takes you through my eyes when I was 10 years old, when a 10-year-old was shot by police officers that were on plainclothes police officers. He was 10 years old, kid named Clifford Glover rather. And we were both 10 years old at the time. So I take you through that a little bit, but then I get into other things as well. So it's a good book. I don't want to give it away too much. If they buy it, they'll see it, and they'll learn something from it,
Is it an autobiography?
No, it's not actually. It's not really an autobiography. It has a little bit of my life in it, a lot of my life in it, and it just takes you through the eyes of a 10-year-old in South Jamaica, growing up in Queens at that time. It's somewhat, it has different things in it. A little bit of an autobiography, but I wouldn't say that that's my actual autobiography,
Okay. So this more focuses on you just being young.
Yeah, it focuses on when I was young, the things I saw in the community as I was growing up, how the killing shaped my mindset of seeing another 10-year-old killed at the time. I went to his funeral, his wake, actually the funeral as well, and it shaped my mindset a little bit. And, I'm quite sure a lot of children, teenagers, and young adults will learn from their experience when they read the book. It's really for children, teenagers, and young adults when they read it. And it also gives you a glimpse into how the neighborhood was at that time and why it was a lot of racism in there as well. This is 1973 I'm talking about. So, and whatnot. So it's worth reading. It's for a conscious individual to read.
Oh, and when can they expect it out? Is it already out right now?
Well, the pre-orders, you can get the pre-orders right now from my website, but it's going to be on Amazon as well. But the pre-orders you can get now. The pre-orders are hardback and they're signed by me, but they're almost sold out of the pre-orders. So once they sell out, then they're going to have to go to Amazon to get the actual book, the hardcover and the softcover. The book is called From the Cradle to the Grave, Chronicles of a Criminalized Class.
Well, that's what's up, man. So everybody check that out. Go to the website, pre-order that book, man. It sounds like it's really dope. Let's, take it back to the beginning of everything and get to know you a little bit better. What was it like for you growing up in South Jamaica, Queens in the 70s and 80s?
Well, I wrote something about how it was back in the days when I was growing up. And I'm gonna give you a little bit from the book, if you don't mind. And I'm gonna read to you, actually, I'm gonna talk to you as well, but I'm gonna read to you how it was back then from an excerpt and whatnot. It's an excerpt from another book, but I touch on this in my book. So I'm gonna give it to you this way, and then I'll talk to you about it afterwards, okay? All right.
Okay.
All right. I'm glad you asked that question. I'm gonna answer it for you in a minute.
Thank you.
This is from another book, but I touch on it in my book. In 1973, South Jamaica was the ghetto area of Queens. A disproportionate number of its 100,000 residents were on welfare. Several thousand were known to be addicts on the basis of public records alone. Its population, which was more than 90% Black and Hispanic, suffered from an infant mortality rate that was twice of other Queens residents. Their life expectancy was 6 years shorter. 3 times as many of their households were headed by women. Unemployment among them was twice the national average. There were, a 1978 New York Times study found, a permanent underclass, people who were wards of the government, living out unproductive lives under conditions that most Americans, if they thought about them at all, considered unacceptable. So that was the area in which I grew up back in 1973. And so what you saw was it was a lot of struggles and a lot of strife and a lot of everybody was mostly poor for the most part in South Jamaica.
I've seen this before. There was a big emphasis on 1973. That's because that kid was killed by the police?
Yes, in 1973, Clifford Glover was walking with his father. He was going to help his father at work. He worked at an auto body shop. And on Saturdays, he would go with him to help him. He would earn a little spare change, help out around the area. Had no gun, had no weapon. He was walking with his father, and 2 plainclothes police officers drove up in an unmarked car, yelled out to them, "Hey, you niggas, stop." Boom. They didn't know who they were because it was unmarked car and they didn't have on police uniforms. They ran, thinking the father thought they was gonna get stuck up or something, because that was going on back then. They ran, they chased him, they shot him in the back. He dies. Later on, they claimed he had a gun. He never had a gun, was no gun found. He was completely innocent. And at that time, South Jamaica went up in flames. It was protests and it was all type of stuff going on, similar to what was happening back in the year 2000 when all the people were getting killed by police officers. So they went to trial though. They were found not guilty in 1974, and it tore the community up back then.
Horrible. That's horrible, man.
Yeah.
And this had a big effect on you.
Oh, it had a huge effect on me. I was 10 years old at the time, and my parents told me not to go to the wake or the funeral because they didn't want me getting caught up in the things that might happen. They were worried. I was 10 years old, but I was young and I didn't pay them no attention. I snuck out and went over to the wake and I saw him in the casket. It was sad, and I came out, and it was a lot of people out there, different crews, different 5% was out there, different gangs was out there, then regular people was out there as well. A protest broke out, and everybody started throwing rocks at the police cars, and it was wild. The whole night was wild. It was a wild night. At 10 years old, I was caught up in the middle of all that, and it had an imprint on my mind.
Okay, now you're seeing this, and you're going to school at the time. Oh, what were you like in school back then?
I did good in school. I was to be honest with you, school was easy to me. I mean, the work was easy. I liked it, but at the time, I don't know, it just didn't excite me much. It was so easy, it didn't excite me. But I went to school, I studied. I was going to a school, PS 116 in Bricktown. It was a tough little elementary school. At the same time, I would bag up groceries across the street at a place. It was a supermarket across the street, don't exist no more, but it was called Met's Food, something like that. I would bag up groceries there. I also had a paper route. I was the type of person who liked to make some little small change, hustle, and put my money up, save my money and stuff like that. And I think I was in the 5th grade at the time when that happened.
What was your family life like?
My family life was good, man. I had a mother and a father, 2-parent household. Both of them worked at the time. I had an older sister, 2 brothers, a younger brother, older brother, and they was making ends meet. We struggled like a lot of families in South Jamaica. We lived at 109, that's 15 Merrick Boulevard, and I was a few blocks away from where Clifford lived. He lived on New York Boulevard at the time. Gower Brewer was named New York Boulevard. And it was a hard life, but it was good because you had family, and I had a big family. So as far as my cousins and my uncles and stuff like that, But we was, people struggle. And that was the times back then, a lot of people struggled. They was trying to move out of the lower class into the middle class at the time. My family was good. We had family reunions, and I had good parents, man.
I seen at one point you didn't live in the Baisley Projects and you moved there at one point?
No, we never lived in the Baisley Projects, actually. We lived at 109, that's 15 Merrick Boulevard. It was a building, it was a apartment building in the poor area of South Jamaica. And after the killing of Clifford Glover, my parents moved us from there to a house. We moved to a house, 170, that's 4318th Avenue, which is about a few blocks away from Baisley Projects.
For everybody who's watching, where are we at right now?
Right now, we're in a community center called Life Camp. It's one of their community centers. Life Camp actually have offices around Queens where they aid and assist the community. They give food drives. They got things they do for the children. They're anti-violence prevention organization. That's what they do. They try to stop violence in the community. They assist the community in a big way. They allow me to be able to have my podcast here and whatnot. So, yeah.
Okay, that's what's up, man. I think everybody kind of knows about, the older times and the things you got arrested for earlier, but, when was your first time getting arrested?
I don't remember exactly when. I think I was 16 or 17 maybe. I think I was around 16 or 17 years old. It was so long ago, I can't really remember. I got arrested. I do remember getting arrested for possession of a weapon. I was going to help a friend who was getting jumped, and someone else had the weapon actually. And I went there with a few others. He was getting jumped by about 4 guys. We went there to help him. One of the guys had a gun, and I was able to get around the side of him, knock his hand down. The gun fell. Everybody was fighting each other, and I picked the gun up so that nobody else can get the gun. But then the police sirens were coming, and when the police sirens were coming, everybody started running. They stopped fighting, they started running. I got the gun in my hand, I'm running with the gun because I don't want to get caught with it. And I run with the gun, and I throw the gun in the park. And one of the police officers see me throw the gun, I think. Anyway, I get caught with the gun. I can't remember exactly, but I get caught with the gun. The gun becomes mine. And I got a year for that. But back then, you only do 6 months on Rikers Island, something like that.
Now, were you going to high school at the time?
Yeah, I was in school. I think I was in high school. I was in high school, I think. I think around that time, something like that, yeah.
What was high school like for you?
Again, I was young, and I'm not gonna lie, I was more appealing to the streets appealed to me more than school. I was very intelligent, and I was bored in school. And I would play hooky sometime from the high school. I went to several high schools. I went to Francis Lewis, I went to August Martin, I went to Francis Lewis, August Martin, August Martin was called Woodrow Wilson at the time, I think. I think at that time it might have been called that. But I went to those schools and whatnot. But I was playing hooky a lot in school back in the days.
Okay. Now, how did you get involved in the street life back then?
Well, I would be, again, I mentioned that I had 2 brothers and a sister. They never got involved in the street life. But as always in most families in South Jamaica, one out of the many or one out of the few, you would be attracted to the streets. And I was attracted to the streets. And I got involved in the street life. Well, after the Clifford Glover incident, I think I became a 5%er then. I know I did. And I started, selling marijuana and stuff like that. And, that was my entry into the street life, selling marijuana at the time.
Oh, okay. That was young. Okay.
Yeah.
What was business like when you started?
Back then in 1973, 74, 75, whatever, it was illegal to sell marijuana, but it was a good business because everybody was smoking. And in my eyesight, it was an innocent business. Nobody got hurt from selling marijuana that I know of. And so I kept doing it for a little while. And of course, it was people say it was a gateway drug. For me, it was a gateway drug. I started selling marijuana, then I ended up getting into selling other narcotics because of that. So.
Okay, after you got into selling other things, man, I'm sure things probably changed a lot in the streets, man. How did your family feel when you started making a lot of money?
I never told my family about me making. One thing about my parents, they didn't play that. They wasn't with me selling the drugs. They wasn't backing me. They wasn't supportive of anything I did on the street. In fact, I actually was told if I didn't get my grades up and if I would continue to be spending more time in the street than at home, I eventually would have to be somewhere else doing that. So I ended up leaving my parents' house early. They never threw me out, but they let me know what they weren't going to tolerate in their household. And since I knew I couldn't be in the household doing the things I was doing on the street, I chose to go ahead and leave because I got a little brother and I don't want to have him around stuff and things like that. So, and my parents wouldn't let me do that anyway. So I left my house at an early age and was in the streets.
Okay, so like a teenager, that early?
It was early. It was I don't know. I can't remember the age. I'm actually 63, and I can.
It's a long time ago. Yeah.
It's a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay.
It was an early age though. I left at an early age though. Yeah.
Now, the place you're most known for, Baisley Projects.
Right.
What was it like, in the early years, and how did it change when, things got worse?
Well, I was gonna. If we could have a little time after this, I'm gonna take your cameraman around. Maybe he can, look around and see the Baisley as it looks now. But to me, Baisley Projects was a beautiful place. You got the projects, you got the co-op right across the street. My grandparents lived right across the street from there, right? That's where Supreme stayed. Right across the street from the Baisley Projects was my grandparents' house. So whenever I would go from my parents, either when we was on 109 and 15 Merrick Boulevard and living in an apartment, or when we was living in the house that we bought not too far from the Baisley, we would go to see my grandparents, and that's how I got accustomed to hanging out and being in Baisley Projects. So to me, it was a community, you know what I'm saying? And everybody knew everybody. And everybody was familiar with everybody. And there was a lot of love shown, back in those days. In the projects, to me, it was harmony, it was love. It was a nice place to me. I got to meet a lot of my friends there. I grew up with a lot of people there and whatnot, so.
Okay, with South Jamaica, Queens being such a rough place to grow up, what do you think was like the first time you had to stand up for yourself?
I remember in elementary school, PS 116, like I told you, as mentioned earlier, it was a tough school because, it was always fights after school in the yard. We line up in the morning, we line up in I think in the evening, whatever. It was always fights after school, and so you had to defend yourself. And a lot of times, a lot of people had a lot of family members, so you always had, when you fight one person, you end up fighting the person's whole family. So families end up fighting each other, brothers end up fighting each other and stuff like that. And that was the place where you learn how to fight. It was elementary school, right there on the playground.
With Supreme being your uncle and turning out to be such a prominent person in not just Queens, but hip hop also, what was it like growing up with him?
When we grew up, we grew up and were raised like brothers, and I had older uncles who were in Vietnam. They fought in Vietnam, and they always schooled us. And to be honest with you, my grandfathers, both of them were in wars before that, right? I forgot which ones, but my family grew up and they sacrificed a lot for the country. Both my grandfathers, like I said, were in wars, previous wars. My older uncles were in Vietnam. One of them got a Purple Heart for bravery in combat. But growing up with Preem, we grew up like brothers, you know what I'm saying? And we always hung out with each other. We was in the projects, we played basketball together in there. You know, we grew up like brothers. So that's how we were raised, you know.
Do you have a favorite memory with you guys back then?
Yeah, I remember one time we went to a family reunion. I think it was in Philadelphia. And, you know, at family reunion, we always have family reunions in our family, always. And I remember one time we took a picture, me, him, and my older brother. We took a picture, and we still had that picture. It's iconic. It was us sitting on a stoop in Philadelphia at my one of my aunt's house, and it's a picture. We had a dog there, and I remember that from the picture, and I remember that we was out there and we used to dance and have fun with our family. I love the family reunion. My favorite memory of being with Supreme was when we all went to family reunions together. When we was kids, when we had no worries in the world. When we was at family, the family reunions were the best part of my life back then. You know.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's what's up. Okay, well, at some time you guys get into more serious things. You know, how did the Supreme team get formed?
Supreme team. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Preem has always been a person who people galvanize around. So, you know, the team didn't get formed, I think, until 70. I was away, actually. I think I got locked up. And when I came home, the team was actually formed already. Cause, you know, we went to 150th Street first. We went to 150th Street. We was selling drugs separately, Preem and I. He was with one crew, I was with another. But then I got locked up. And when I went upstate for 4 years, I came back, and the team was formed within that period of time. So when I came home, the team was already formed, you know.
Okay, well, what was your thoughts? You know, when you know, you get out and Supreme team is formed, and you know.
Well, when I was upstate, Preem and others had the team going, and I would pay attention to what was going on. Of course, I got visits from Preem. He would tell me certain things, and I was studying while I was up there. I was going to college. I was also studying about organizations. I started reading all cases of anybody who got arrested and took down by either the state or the feds. I would read about all the Italian cases, mob cases. I would read about black gangsters from the past. And this is what I would do. I would be upstate reading their cases and studying how they got took down. Because in my mind, I said, I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna probably be involved in certain things. So I had to learn how not to get caught and not to get caught up and stuff like that. And how to put your money in certain places and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay, can you take me through an average day in the Supreme team?
Yeah, before I do that, I want to say to you, I'm talking to you, but I'm not. What I'm not into is the glorification of that lifestyle. I'm talking to you to answer your questions. But my thing is, in answering your questions, it could help people not do and not follow in my footsteps. So, because a lot of times these podcasters make a big deal about somebody speaking about their past, but they don't never speak about the things they've been doing in their present. And so me speaking to you, not you per se, I'm talking about other people, because I've spoken before and we've talked and answered questions about what I did in the past. And the first thing they say is, he's talking about this, he glorifying this, glorifying that. Well, you have to speak about the past in order to show them what you're doing in the present and showing the difference between who you are now. So I don't mind answering your questions. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that to you, that I'm quite sure you know as a podcaster, you've seen people talk about, hey man, they glorifying this, they glorify that, they glorify this. Nobody's proud. No intelligent person who lived that lifestyle for real would be proud of the way he might have lived or just want to come home and glorify his past. but you have to speak about everything when you're talking. And so that's why I'm answering your questions. But now, what was that question again?
I hear that for sure, man. That's definitely important. I mean, you did 34 years, man, and man, if that's not a deterrent for somebody, I can't imagine what is, man.
Yeah,
That's a lot of your life that you
hey,
sacrificed.
Cam, let me tell you something. 34 years and 6 months. Don't even give me no shorts. I'm gonna give it all to you, right? Okay. That is almost 35 years. That is a lot of time. I did more time than Nelson Mandela, except I did it for the wrong reasons. He was in there. He was a political prisoner. But my point is that is a lot of time to make you think and sit back and analyze the way you lived. Although I wouldn't wish that on nobody. But I don't mind speaking about the past because you got people today who really still think that lifestyle is the way to go, selling drugs. So I can tell you, back in our time when we were selling drugs, it was a little different. And we were selling and getting into that lifestyle, and it's not caked up to what people think it is. But at the same token, we did a lot of damage, but we also helped a lot of people. And a lot of people learned from us, and a lot of people went different ways. There's times when we told people with us, yo, this ain't for you, man. Get out of here, man. Go to school. Yo, this ain't for you. There's times when when certain holidays come around, we would give out food to people. I paid a lot of people's rents, you know what I'm saying, to be honest with you. But that don't excuse the fact that I've sold drugs, And so back in those times, it was different. It was a little more nostalgic than it is now. You know what I'm saying? I will say that, you know what I'm saying? You had a little bit more principles in certain areas of what you did. At the time, you couldn't sell in New York at that time unless you were with certain people. That's why a lot of people left New York and went elsewhere, not only because it was lucrative somewhere else, but because they couldn't really hang out in certain neighborhoods and do what they was doing because you had to be a part of a certain clique or crew or something. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. But Supreme Team was more organized. We went over into we had ours more organized. We turned it more into an organized thing than just out there just getting money. We organized our crew. You know what I mean? So.
Okay, how did that come into everything?
Well, when my uncle was very charismatic, and he never thought that he would be doing this for the rest of his life. His thing was, we in this for a little while, we getting out. And so when I came home and he got locked up, he gave me the reins, and I started organizing it a little better, a little more, and whatnot. But when you organize crime, it brings more attention as well. You feel me? And when he got locked up in the state, they ended up taking him to the feds, and he ended up, going to the feds. But when he got locked up, he was charged with running a continuing criminal enterprise. When I got locked up, they charged us with RICO because we organized it and we made it more into organized crime. Now, mind you, that RICO statute don't necessarily fit every crime. They give RICO now to the regular gangs in the street now, and that don't even fit for real because they're not organized crime. But that was just the way to lock them up. In our case, when they locked up our half of the Supreme Team, we were actually organized crime. It was a true bill. So what I did was come home and I took it and I organized it in a certain way, and I made it so that, you had lieutenants, and Supreme always had lieutenants, but I organized it in a way where, it was it was more organized crime type of thing. You feel me? So, yeah.
Okay, can you take me through an average day in the Supreme Team?
An average day, you said?
Yep.
At what year? In the beginning, the middle, the end?
Probably like towards the middle and the end.
Let's see, man. Me personally, I got up every morning, I come out and I go around the way and I check out all the spots that's nearby, because we had places all the way from Long Island to Queensbridge to we had spots everywhere. And contrary to what people think, we sold weight. We didn't just sell on the street level. We had weight as well. And some people would buy weight from us, but they would be a part of the team, and we would protect them. We had security. We had lieutenants. We had areas under control. It was 24-hour, 7 days a week, man.
Okay, now you had mentioned going to jail and coming home. Did anything change when you came home? Was the neighborhood different? You know, did you see any changes?
You talking about this time I came home? You talking about when I came home?
Back then.
Back then? Are you speaking about me being home now? Did I see are you talking about way back in the days?
I was talking about back then when you came home.
Oh, yeah. And, well, when I came home, Preem had to, when I left to go upstate, Preem was on the 150th Street, him, Fat Cat, different people. They were working for people. I was working for somebody. When I went to prison and came home, Preem had his own crew, Cat had his own crew, and they were the main ones. And Carly, everybody, it was like 3 main crews. Then you had, on the farmer side, you had other people over there as well, right? You know, everything was broke up into crews or big names, and they ran areas. Everything was segmented, where there's only certain crews had certain areas in Queens. Queens was chopped up, and you had to be with these people. That's how it was. Now you had some other people in between. You had Hillside Avenue, you had others up on New York Boulevard, but for the most part, it was just certain crews and certain cliques and stuff. Yeah.
What was the biggest purchase that you made at the height of everything?
I'd say we bought one time, I don't know, maybe 300 keys, 400 keys one time and whatnot. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you make any big, like, personal purchases, like cars or anything like that?
Yeah, we had, excuse me. Hey, look, I already got convicted and sentenced for what I did. So I can speak. I was found guilty of running continuing criminal enterprise. I was found guilty of a RICO. And so anything I say is already proven. So it's not, I went to trial, I went to court, I was convicted of it, so I'm not worrying about it, right? So anyway, yeah, we bought things, I had a building over there. I had 3 buildings actually, right? And then I had a store. We had cars, mink coats, jewelry. We spent a lot of money on jewelry, to be honest with you, So, we should have been buying more land and more property than anything else, but we wasn't thinking too much, That's the thing about now. I came home, I see all the land that I wish I would have bought. Somebody else bought it, and they got all type of stuff built on it. God don't make no more land, you feel me? And that's what we should have bought. Instead of buying cars and jewelry, we should have bought land and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that for sure, man. Okay, I think you kind of touched on this, but I believe in 1987, Supreme goes to jail on narcotic charges. What was it like taking over when he went to jail?
Nobody raises their hand and say, hey, let me be the one to run something. It don't work like that, you know what I mean? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. That stuff it takes a lot of responsibility. And what was it like? It was just something you had to do. It wasn't like it was exciting or nothing. It just was something that you had to do, and just you do things to keep things running smoothly. You know what I mean?
You guys made it all the way from the bottom to the top. How did you get to the level that you made it to?
Loyalty, sincerity. In that life, it's hard, man. That street life is dangerous. It's hard. I wouldn't wish that on nobody. I wouldn't want my grandson to ever be in that lifestyle. It's wicked, it's dangerous. You have to be on your toes. You have to watch law enforcement. You have to watch snakes in the grass. You have to watch your own people, some of them. You know, it's a dangerous lifestyle. And that's why it's hard for me to speak about it. I can show it in a documentary. I can show it in a movie. It's hard to speak about it in a certain way because you got to see it to believe it. It can be cruel, man. It can be wicked. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot from life, from that lifestyle. But who wants to sacrifice so much to learn so little? You know what I mean? And whatnot. You know, I'm going to be putting together something where people can see. They're going to see exactly what happened in that lifestyle when I put it to film.
It was reported you guys are making a very large sums of money. How accurate were those reports?
You know, you got to be careful because sometimes, right? That's the one thing about stories. People, it be so many lies mixed in with the truth. You can't tell the difference, right? Sometimes they say, you know, I think what's a saying that goes, the truth is stranger than fiction or something like that, something of that nature. But yeah, we made a lot of money and we did a lot of things. We had businesses that people don't even know we had. I was telling somebody before, Preem had satellite business before they even had, but satellites became a big thing. He had a satellite company on Hillside Avenue, right? Nobody really knows this. And before satellites were even a big thing, he had a company and he was putting satellites in people's homes and stuff. But, you know, and then, you know, but we made a lot of money, bro. I can't even calculate how much to you. I can't say how much, but it was a lot. You know, we was at our height. We was making a whole bunch of money, man.
You mentioned buying 300 keys, you know, at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were those like dangerous encounters? Like, you know, when you do something like that, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, but you know, and let me just fix that so you understand. I'm talking about within a period of maybe 2 weeks or so. You said the most. So I'm really calculating like in a 2-week period, something of that nature. You know, I remember us buying keys and I remember that we used to keep we had a record of what we kept most of the time. We had someone who had the record, right? He would keep the books and we had it written down in the books. And I remember in trial, they going over it in trial and talking about what we made in the 2-week period. That's why I mentioned that. So, yeah, our turnover was fast, right? We had so many areas we were turning over fast, and again, we were also selling keys to people. They had to sell our product and whatnot, so they would sell our product, you know. So, yeah.
Every street story ends with death or a serious amount of time in prison. You know, you mentioned going legit and that you guys didn't want to be here for a long periods of time, but, you know, did you ever think about, like, you know, how close were you to quitting? Did you ever quit? Did you, you know, what was that like?
Every time we got close to leaving that life alone, we got arrested. Every time we got close to wanting to leave it alone, it would be an arrest, and the arrest would cause us to get back into the game, back into that lifestyle. And you making so much money, man, and then you thinking that you ain't never thinking you're gonna get caught, actually. But you are saying to yourself, and we used to have talks, and we would sit everybody down, we would watch films and movies, and we would have talks, and we would say, if you can't do life, you're in the wrong business. That's what we would say. That's what Preem would say. If you can't do life in prison, you're in the wrong business. And so and the reason why he said that to us is to let people understand that that's what can happen. And I'm gonna tell you something, very few people actually get rich in that lifestyle, contrary to what everybody say. Usually in that lifestyle, you either gonna get killed or you're gonna go to prison for a very long time. Rarely do you actually really get filthy rich. And I just want to get that myth out the way. And so to the children, teenagers, young adults who might be watching your program, I want them to understand, especially today, that life is over with. We talking about the past. In the past, very few people got paid like you think they did, you know? And then the more money you get, the more you want to stay in that lifestyle, because it looks it's so easy to you. Back in that time, the police were crooked. They let you sell. Nowadays, they ain't letting you do shit, really. You know what I mean? And it ain't even worth it anyway. So, yeah, that was a hell of an era, man. And that's why you see so many rappers, we rap about it. You know, it was a time when hip hop was formulating. You know, you're talking about the 70, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, you know, and so they rapped about the things we did. Mind you, it's times when we gave turkeys away for Thanksgiving. We did all kind of stuff for holidays. We paid people's rents that were losing their apartments. Now, mind you, that don't make up for the bad that we did, but you know, it's hard. We don't talk about the good we did in the midst of bad, because people look at the bad and say that's the worst thing in the world. But you know, we fed people, man. We people, you know, we fed people in the streets, people that was doing bad. We helped people out. You know what I'm saying? Even though we was doing wrong, you know.
In 1990, you get arrested for racketeering, money laundering, leading a continued criminal enterprise, and other charges, and you're looking at a life sentence. How did you find out you were being arrested?
I didn't find out I was being arrested in 1990. What happened was I had got dropped off at my house, and I lived in Queens Village at the time. 223. I forgot the exact address, but it was in Queens Village. It was a mother-daughter high ranch house, top and bottom, nice place. And yeah, and so what happened was when I went in, I just got dropped off by my people. They took me in, and only let certain people come to my house. The only one that come to my house is the people that I know will give their life for me. Nobody else. We grew up with each other. We trust each other. We know each other's mother and father, and so they dropped me off. The ones who always dropped me off. I went inside, took a shower. At the time, my wife at the time, Suzette, she made me something to eat. I ate, I went to sleep. We were both in the bed sleep, and the police got to my bedroom door so quietly. They didn't have to knock the front door open, because the shit was left open. And they walked right in there, and they went right into, came to my bedroom, and that's when they tried to knock the door. I had that door locked, and when I heard it, I looked up, I reached down, I slept with a shotgun there, sawed-off shotgun there. I picked up the shotgun. But then I seen the letters on the front, and I threw the shotgun in the closet, and I got arrested right there. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, they could have blew my head off, because for real, if they would have seen the gun in my hand, they might have opened fire on me. I'd have been dead, man. So I'm glad I threw that shotgun fast, man. Yeah. And they arrested us, yeah. I had no prior warning I was going to be arrested, right? So, because you said, how did you find out you was going to be arrested? I had no prior warning. They just came. Yeah.
Did you have any clue that they were onto you?
We started thinking, they had my phone wiretapped. Look, they had my phone wiretapped, and we kept talking like, yo, man, they listening to our phone calls. But I didn't have an actual clue. I just knew that the phone might have been tapped. You know, they use, in my case, and they use informants and confidential informants, right? And I know you know the difference between the two. I mean, we know that's what we've been talking about lately. But that's what they use in our case. In order to get the wiretaps and the search warrants, they use informants and confidential informants. And The confidential informants were the ones who actually were right in the midst of us, and they knew everything kind of going on, and they would tell them certain things. And in fact, I had a hearing, and at the hearing, when I had a hearing to suppress the shotgun that I owned the shotgun. I made sure that I took ownership of that so that nobody else would get arrested, right? And so I tried to suppress it so they don't use it at trial. And I really wanted to learn how did they find out things. And what happened was they let me know that someone gave up they basically where I lived in the house, where I slept in the house, and they had pictures of my wife, had pictures of her that they got from the informant and all kind of stuff, man.
Oh, okay. So this was somebody close to you, very close to you. Then.
Yeah, very, very close, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I seen that you beat the state case, so they dropped the state case and the feds picked it right up? Right.
What happened was, I'm glad you asked me this story because this is interesting. This is where it gets interesting. First, we get arrested by the state. In 1990, March 21st, 1990, it was the state that locked us up. Queens prosecutor's office locked us up. When they locked us up, we moved to suppress the wiretaps. We got locked up first for a drug case. Then they charged us with some homicides. And so we moved to suppress the wiretaps. And when we moved to suppress the wiretaps, before they moved to suppress the wiretaps, they took me to, I think I went to trial first on the homicides. I was found not guilty on the homicides, all of them. Since I was incarcerated at the time when they alleged that it occurred, I was found not guilty. It was a weak case from the start. Number one, they said I ordered some murders, which didn't happen. It wasn't even a true story. So I knew I was going to win that case. But then we moved for the suppress the wiretaps. That was a little different. And what happened was one of my co-defendants got his suppressed first. And they knew that they would have to expose who the rat was. So instead of exposing who the rat was, right, they elected instead to have the feds pick the case up because the rat was too important to expose. So what they did was...
And with the feds, they can hide the rats longer, right?
Right. And so what happened was in my case, my co-defendant wiretaps got suppressed. My wiretaps actually never got suppressed on my house, right? What happened was they didn't want to have certain hearings because I was asking to see the rat. I wanted to see the person walk into court to see who it is. And I think in their minds, they said, we can't do that. We have to protect who he is. So the feds took the case to federal court. And then later on, they threw the case got thrown out. You know what I'm saying? Ours would have got suppressed anyway. We did have a hearing. I think we had some kind of hearing. I got to go back and look. And then we waited to see what they was going to say. But when the feds picked the case up, it was nothing else to say. They ended up throwing everything out. So I beat the homicide cases, the quadruple homicide, and then they suppressed my co-defendants' wiretaps. And then they just threw mine out, and we get to federal court.
Okay, and this is all while you're still in jail. So you're fighting.
Yeah, I tried to make a bail. They wouldn't let me make bail. We put up property to make bail. My bail was, I think, either $500,000 or $1 million. We put up something, but we had to go to Court of Appeals. We went to the courts because they wouldn't accept what we put up because they said we had to put up more or something like that. So we put up some property, then they said we had to put up more or something like that. So we ended up losing in the Court of Appeals, and the feds came and got us and took us before anything else. And I never went home from there. I went straight to the feds.
Did you have to fight your case with a public defender?
No, I had a private lawyer at first. I had a lawyer named Richard Giampa. And then what happened was they said, I never lost a case with Richard Giampa. I had beat every case I ever had with this man. And what happened was, because I had him in the state. I had him for the quadruple homicide, and I had him for the wiretap case. Now, when the feds came, I used Mr. Giampa for the Fed case at first, but then they said that he can't represent me, or they was trying to say he can't represent me because he is what they call house counsel, because he represented a lot of my co-defendants. So they said, well, we want to know where you got the money to pay for this lawyer. So I couldn't use Mr. Giampa for the Fed case. And I was damn sure not going to just go pay them lawyers cost a lot of money. I'm not going to pay a bunch of money for lawyers I don't really know. Because most of the time they charge you a lot of money and you still lose. So I'm doing calculations here. Man, I'm gonna hold on to whatever I got left, and they won't let me have Giampa, so they end up giving me a lawyer, and they gave me it wasn't a public defender, it was a lawyer from the CJA, and the lawyer from the CJA came on. She was good. Her name was Joyce London. She actually was a good lawyer, and she had a partner named Susan Kelman was the one, and then she had a partner named Joyce London. So I ended up having two lawyers. Good, they was good at what they did. There wasn't no problems, nothing like that. But I wanted to stay with Giampa because Giampa was the one who knew the case better. But right away they said, he's house counsel, we're gonna charge them with using him or whatever. And they made it so that I couldn't use him. And they never even called him as a witness for the case to prove where the money came from. It was just a ploy to keep him from representing me in federal court. And when you can't have the lawyer of your choosing, you're not trying to waste no more money on no lawyers that you ain't know about. Simple as that, you know what I'm saying? And so either way, I always thought in my mind that I couldn't win the Fed case anyway. I just didn't think so because they had the wiretaps. After they took the wiretaps and denied I lost the Franks hearing. The judge ruled that they can use the wiretaps. I knew then that they was going to convict me of the drug case anyway. So it wouldn't have made no sense to have a lawyer just to give him money for no reason when you're going to blow trial anyway. I use my head, you know.
How many people testified against you that you didn't expect would?
Let me answer this question this way. All the solid men with me stood up. Every last individual in the team that was solid stood up. I never worried about them. Shannon Jimenez, Ronald Tucker, Waverly Coleman, Wilfredo Arroyo, David Robinson. All of them guys stood up, and they were Supreme Team members, and we grew up together. They were loyal from the start, and so I knew I wasn't worrying about them. Now there were other people who wasn't Supreme Team members but were affiliated with us, and they actually rolled over fast. I mean, quick fast. You know, we had informants. We had straight rats, and then we had confidential informants. Collectively, that was it. That's all they really needed. It's so easy to convict somebody in the federal court. It's very easy. But, you know, we had one person who started the whole case because he was facing his own problems, and he started telling the authorities everything he can about us, and that got us arrested. It got the feds to get into, to take notice of us. And then, of course, you had the confidential informants who got the wiretaps and the search warrants and was giving them information and stuff like that. But all my solid co-defendants stood up. The ones who didn't stand up were never Supreme Team members. One rat testified that he was my head of security, and he wasn't. He was never that. He was able to say that because he grew up around us, and he was always around. But he was not the one that I used to do anything with. He took the job of someone else and put himself in them shoes and whatnot. And he would say that he said at trial, he said, I was his head of security and I did this and that and we did this and that. But all that he said wasn't even true because he wasn't my head of security. The one who was on trial with me, and he kept his mouth shut. You know what I'm saying? He was a stand-up person.
What do you think was like the craziest thing that happened during your trial?
Which trial, state or federal?
Well, I want to say federal, or either both of them together. You know.
Okay, I can tell you this. I'll tell you the state. I had a state trial. In the state trial, I was winning the case. I'm winning the case because I'm innocent. And that's why I'm winning the case, to be honest with you. And a witness takes a stand. His name is Trent Morris. He was a rat, but he takes a stand. He's lying, but he takes a stand. After he takes a stand, his in-laws, the next day, his in-laws got killed. Or not even the in-laws, because he wasn't married. I think he got a baby by the girl. His baby's mother I think he got kids by the lady. The day after he takes a stand, his baby's mother's father and his baby's mother's sister were killed. And right in Baisley Projects. And I didn't do it, didn't order it, didn't have nothing to do with it. But the news and everybody else thought that I did, because it's a coincidence that it happened so fast. And so right away they started accusing me in the papers of being the one who did that. Now I'm already knowing the case is going good. I'm innocent, and I feel great. But then the next morning I go to court and I see things moving around. I'm like, what happened? Giampa, what happened? He said, man, Gerald, the witness's family members, not his family, but his girlfriend's family got killed. I said, you playing? Are you serious? He said, no, I'm dead serious. I said, yo. He said, you guys, I said, man, why would I do that? First of all, one thing about us, we're not gonna harm somebody's family because of what somebody else is doing. And we don't do that. That's not how we move. And I definitely didn't do this, so I'm like shocked. And so it turned out later on, the government learned later on through a confidential informant or an informant that I didn't do it. And then evidence came out. So they end up arresting someone else, and he goes to trial on it. So they realized, damn, Prince ain't do it. But somebody in their own camp that the government was using as a confidential informant told them that Prince didn't do the joint. He didn't do it. Double murder. And that was the weirdest thing that happened, because I'm like, oh shit, I'm thinking somebody trying to set me up. You know, I actually knew the family members, and I was cool with the family members, so I couldn't understand that. I was devastated by that, but we ended up winning the trial anyway.
That is some crazy bad luck, yeah. When I was going through your story, I seen this, yeah, and this guy got arrested like 6 years later, and they had all types of crazy rumors about you, and that they carved a P in one of their chests or something.
Right, and that's another thing I want to tell you. I had looked at the autopsy reports, and I said to myself, whoever did this was trying to set me up to take the weight off of them, because I looked at the carvings and it looked like that to me. It looked like a P was carved in there. If you ask me, I would think that it was, or just unluckily he just stabbed the person in so many times. But no, it looked like the person was trying to set me up for it, so that he can get it. Basically, whatever he did, if he did it, whoever did it. Somebody did it, but whoever did it, but wanted it to fall on my shoulders. Luckily though, you know what I'm saying, I beat that trial that I was on trial for and whatnot. But everybody in Baisley Projects knew I didn't do that. The whole Baisley knew Prince don't roll like that. He ain't gonna touch somebody else's family members, man. That's one thing that he ain't gonna do. If I got a problem with, back in those days, if I had a problem with somebody, I'm gonna deal with that person. I'm not gonna touch their family. And that's the difference with me and people nowadays. I don't touch people's families, man. One thing I never did, if I got a problem with someone, I'll deal with the person I got the problem with. I'm not gonna mess with their family. That's just bottom line. I wasn't raised that way, so, you know. But that was one of the craziest things that ever happened to me, because I could have blew trial, and I was distraught over the fact that the people that got killed was good people with me as well, like the sister, the Carringtons. They were good people. They was good. The sisters were solid, man, and they was solid. I grew up with them, both of them. I went to school with one of them. So, you know, they were solid people, and I was sad to hear what happened to their family. The father owned a dry cleaners work man, was a good man, roamed the dry cleaners, working, do good for his family. You know what I'm saying? And he got killed by some derelict and shit. You know what I'm saying? Robbing the spot or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Whatnot. You know.
How long did your trial last?
The state trial or federal trial?
The federal trial.
The federal trial lasted, I think, 2 months.
Oh, okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, I think 2 months. I think he was found guilty in June 1993. I think we started April 1993, and I think it ended in June 1993. Yeah.
How long did the jury take to deliberate?
They took, I think it might have been longer than a week, because I was found not guilty of all homicides, right? And I was never convicted of any violent federal offense. I have never been convicted of a violent federal offense. I've never been convicted of murder, homicide, none of that. It took about a week and change. I blew to running a continuing criminal enterprise, which was the super kingpin law, life with no parole, and I blew to racketeering Influence Corrupt Organizations Act.
And you get sentenced to 7 life sentences plus 20 years, which is a crazy sentence for someone who didn't get convicted of anything violent. You know, what was your thoughts, and what was that like?
Well, I remember we got sentenced, and I remember when we blew trial, and it was, some of my co-defendants had family in the courtroom when we blew trial. And when they heard that we blew trial, some of them was crying, and some of them, they was there when we blew trial, when we found guilty. I had to tell them to be quiet, y'all, chill. I didn't want them to show that kind of emotion, because I didn't want nobody else to feel it sitting there. I love my co-defendants that stood with me, that went to trial with me, and I always want to put a strong face on. You know what I'm saying? We can always go back to our cell. I used to tell them in the bullpen, we can go back to our cell and show emotion, but when we out there, we ain't gonna show no emotions when they pronounce whether we guilty or not guilty. And so, but you can't tell people's family really how to show their emotion, But when we got sentenced individually. And I went to court that day, and I made sure that my parents wasn't in court for the sentencing, because I knew it would be life. And I spoke to the judge at the sentencing, and he wanted me to show more remorse. Like, we wanted me to say what I'm guilty of or whatever, I guess, because he mentioned the fact that I didn't speak about remorse. But he has to understand that they use illegal wiretaps in my case. The state ruled that they were illegal through my co-defendant's case, and the police used them, and they denied every hearing I had. And I felt at the time that it was a little unfair. I'm not saying I wasn't guilty, but the way in which you pursued me was not legal, and you lose illegal ways to get me. It was the ends justifying the means. Sure, I was a drug dealer. Sure, I was guilty, but you didn't get me legally the way you should have gotten me. So I was a little upset about that. And so, I spoke to the judge, but I was respectful, and I did have remorse. It's just not the way in which he wanted me to show it, you know what I'm saying? But I did have remorse, you know what I mean, and whatnot. I felt that, I was wrong for selling drugs. I felt, I was wrong for a few things, but I was focused on watch my appeal. When you got an appeal pending, you have to watch what you say, because what you say could be used against you when you got an appeal. So you got to watch what you say at sentencing. You know what I mean?
I hear that for sure, man. Okay, so at one point after you get arrested, you get charged with a triple homicide, but you beat it?
Yeah, I got charged with a triple homicide in the state. I was in jail, and they claimed that I ordered some Colombians to be killed, right? They had one witness that claimed that that I did this, they had one witness, a dude, I forgot his name. He's so unimportant to me. But this one witness said that I told him to do this thing or whatever, which was not true. And we proved it wasn't true because he said I called at a certain time. At the time he said I called, there was a wiretap, but there's no call. There's no call on this phone showing that I ordered this to be done. So he said I called a certain house in Baisley Projects, apartment 1H, 116-80 Guy Brewer Boulevard, apartment 1H. And they said that I called at that time and told him to do this, but there was no proof because there was a wiretap there and there was no conversation there. So it couldn't have been true. And so that swayed the jury to see, oh, this guy's telling a lie. And so then they used another rat to try to say I took him around and showed him places where people were. It was just incredible. The jury found me, 12 jurors found me not guilty of that crime. Then I went to federal court and 12 jurors in federal court found me not guilty as well. You know, and that alone, when the Supreme Team series come out, people will see for themselves the real about that, the truth, and they'll understand what happened. And that's going to be epic because then you'll finally get to see what happened. You got to be careful with these rats and these informants, you know, because they'll put crimes on you that they do just to get around their cases. And the government don't care. They'll use them to get you locked up as long as they tell them the story the way they want it to be told. You know?
How many cases did you end up beating?
I beat, let me see, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, maybe 4 cases, something like that. I beat a lot of cases with Mr. Giampa. He was the best trial lawyer you can get, and I beat him. And then some things I beat before I even went to trial. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I beat a lot of cases. You know? And while I was locked up with John Gotti, and one time Gotti got locked up for, and this is why I bring this up to you. While I was in the state, while I was facing trial in the state, they brought John Gotti in. He was facing a case too, and they brought him in, and they put us in Rikers Island Hospital. You had 2 sides, and they put him on the same side with me. But then they didn't want us together. They took him and put him on the other side, and he had to fight with the court to get off the other side that he was on. You feel me? And he got from out of there too. But we was on the same side. And then it's funny because I met John in Rikers Island Hospital. Then I met John again. Me and John was on 11 North, right? Me and John Gotti was on 11 North. My cell was right across from his cell. He was in the cell with another guy, good, solid Italian dude. I love him too. Mike DeSantis, good, solid individual, man. He was a class act, man. I like the way he carried himself. We cared about each other, man. We spoke, you know what I mean? So I spoke to John on several occasions. We would keep the floor at peace. All of us would keep the floor at peace. It was beautiful, man. It was a beautiful floor, 11 North, man, when we was there. Yeah.
In the John Gotti movie, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but there's a time where, you know, I guess some dudes steal from the black dudes, and he goes and kind of squashes everything and makes everybody cool again. You know what I'm saying? And pays them back.
A black dude stole from the Italian dude, or Italian dude stole from the black dude?
An Italian dude stole from the black dude, and so John Gotti replaced everything that the Italian dude or white dude stole, and kind of, you know, squashed everything and made sure there was no beef or anything.
They said that happened while he was in jail?
Yeah, but I think it happened on a prior.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. I can't confirm or if that happened or not. I can tell you this: the first day we got locked up to go to, the first day me and my co-defendants got locked up to go to MCC New York or to go to court. The very first day, John and his co-defendant was there, right? And we got in the same van at that time because it was late, and I think they was on trial, whatever. We got in the same van, And John asked us, hey, what judge y'all got? I said, Raymond J. Deary. He said, hey, man, that's a good judge. I give him my right arm for that judge. He handled the Windows case with my brother, man. You got a fair judge. That's what he told us the very first day we met him. And then they put us in the hole, but then later on they let us out. And I ended up going to 11 North, like I just said, with him. And, you know, I've had the privilege of being around a lot of the old Italian dudes. Vicar Musso, he was there at one point. All the ones that they locked up, all the head ones, I've had the privilege of being around all of them here and there. And it was a friend of mine's named Mike Mellon. He was also there. He was my cellie. Mike DeSantis was John Gotti's cellie, and me and Mike Mellon was cellies and whatnot. He was Nicky Bond's nephew, and we were cellies and stuff. We kept peace on that floor. That's what we did. We made sure that floor was peaceful. And I remember when Sammy the Bull flipped, and when Sammy the Bull flipped, the police called me to the door. The CO called me to the door. He said, hey, man, hey, go tell whatchamacallit that Sammy the Bull, they just took Sammy the Bull out of here. He's flipping. I said, you sure, man? He told me it's a black police. He told me, I said, oh, okay. So first I tell Mike Mellon, hey, man, the dude told me to tell John, man, I'm going to let him know. He probably going to be offended by it, man. He said, man, tell him. I went and told John, yo, Sammy the Bull, they just took him out the building, man. They said he flipping, man. I told John. John said, where you get this information from? I said, man, the CO told me, man. You know what I'm saying? He's reliable? I said, he's reliable, man. He ain't got no reason to lie. And John found out the next day that he was reliable because it was true. Sammy the Bull had flipped. And then he seen me a couple of days. He came to me and like, yo, man, thank you, man, and whatnot, you know. But he looked at his face, man. He looked at, damn, could it really be true or not? I don't think he believed me at first, you know what I'm saying? But then he ended up coming back and thanking me for telling him that, so, you know, yeah.
Damn, that's pretty crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, I seen the movies and it seemed like everybody was pretty upset when Sammy flipped.
Yeah, that was a hard pill right there.
Well, you get sentenced to these 7 life sentences, and you do 34 and a half years, 34 years and 6 months. What happened that allowed you to come home after being sentenced to this long amount of time?
Well, as you know, I don't know if you know or not, but you probably do. They had something called the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010. You know what that act? You know what that is?
I didn't hear about that. I heard about the other act that they
yeah, you talking about the First Step Act. I'm gonna talk about the first thing that came out was the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010. Congress came up and said that the 100-to-1 statute was not proper. It imposes time on people based on race, and they felt that the quality of 100-to-1 crack and cocaine is the same thing. And they lowered it down. They didn't even it out, but they lowered it down. But it wasn't retroactive. Congress passed the law. Obama signed it, but it wasn't retroactive for people like me who've been incarcerated for so long. It only dealt with people coming in, not people who have already been in. Well, and that was in 2010. In 2018, Congress passed another law saying they made making the 2010 Act retroactive for people like me so that we can go before a court, file papers so we can get a chance for the judge to decide whether we should get the new statutory application of the drug quantities. President Trump signed it. So you got one law that President Obama signed for people that coming in to change the crack law, 100-to-1 to change it. Then President Trump made it retroactive. So now I can put in a motion to the judge. So I put my motion into the judge. Now during the time frame, I've been in there rehabilitating myself, doing programs, teaching programs, keeping people out of trouble, stopping violence, all kind of stuff. I've been helping people. And so, for instance, I went to they put me in a program where I wasn't supposed to be in Big Sandy, but they let me go in there as a tutor to teach people about how to re-enter home and re-enter society and be law-abiding citizens. And so I took all that stuff and gave it to my judge and quoted that law, hired a good lawyer, excellent lawyer, private lawyer, and they took my motion before the judge, and the judge said, you know what, I'm gonna give this guy a second chance because I believe this guy is, right now while he's incarcerated, I think he can be a productive, law-abiding citizen based on what I see him doing in prison now. I'm gonna let him go. And he granted my motion. And I walked out of prison on September 20th, 2024. 6 life sentences, 20 years, down to time served. He felt that I had did enough in prison to change my life around, that I would not be a problem should I return back to society. And that's a good thing, you know?
Yeah, man, that's really dope that they are giving you another chance, man. How did it feel when you first walked out those gates? I mean, I would assume, you know, at one point you probably you thought that there was no chance, and then you actually do get out.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Cam. I never thought that I would be in jail for the rest of my life, right? I just don't think like that. In order to change, see, you got to change while you look in the mirror long enough. Any real person who understands right and wrong is going to ask himself, where did he go wrong? I don't want to forget blaming the system. I can blame the system for a lot of things that they did in the communities that causes poor people, whether they white or black, to do things to go to prison. Because in jail, the only thing you see in prison nowadays is poor people. Black, white, Hispanic, everybody's poor for the most part. And so it's really a place to house the poor, if you ask me. And people, when they poor, will do all kinds of things to go make money. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna blame the system. What I did was I looked at myself and I said, you know what, I gotta change. And so I started thinking about things I had to do to show the courts and to show people that, man, that I'm a different person. Now that being said, I still keep my own principles, you know what I'm saying? But when I never looked at the fact that I would never get out of prison, but I was very happy when the decision came down, overly excited. The first thing I did when I finally walked out of prison was, I came outside and right there on the prison ground, it was a car waiting there. I stepped off the prison ground onto the street part. I took out a napkin, folded it up on the ground, and I kissed the ground. Because I was so happy that my feet hit pavement. You feel me? I used to pace around my cell while waiting for that decision, right? I would pace around that cell back and forth waiting for that decision. And I was always like, damn, I need this blessing, you know? And because I know I ain't gonna come back. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna repeat the things I did that got me there. Only a fool would do that now, after 34 years and 6 months in prison. And so I kissed that ground and I got in that car, and then I was taken to a place, and it felt good to be around people, man. And so that was a long time in there, man. A very long time, man. And I'm smiling now because of the feeling. I can remember being released so clearly. You feel me? And it's a beautiful thing, man. You gotta excuse me, man. I'm a little under the weather, like I told you before, and whatnot. But I'm reminiscing on the day that I was released because you brought it up. So, you know.
Man, that's awesome, man. Well, okay, while you're in jail, Supreme gets out and starts to work with Murder Inc. and Irv Gotti and everybody, and you know they're just, you know, they got, you know, new rappers and they're doing big things. Oh, you know, what was your thoughts when all that happened?
Look, I was in the streets when hip hop when it was first, you know, blossoming, right? So to see, we used to invite some of them guys when they was not known like they are now. We would invite them to different places. We would go and they'd be happy to come, and we influenced them, right? And if some of them, if they're not afraid to say it, they'll tell you that directly. But I was so happy to see, as I was incarcerated, I would be watching and looking and watching different things on TV and stuff. I was always happy to see it. I always knew back then, I knew hip hop was gonna be here to stay. And so just to see so many people that is feeding, so many people making a living and doing it the right way through music, through the experiences that they see in the neighborhood, things that we even was doing. People rap about things, you know what I'm saying? And so to see so many people eating and living and don't have to commit crimes, it was a beautiful thing. Seeing Preem involved with music and doing docs or movies or whatever, like Crime Partners, to me that was exciting. I was like, yeah, finally, man, forget them streets. But then to see him get locked up kind of like messed me up a little bit. But I'm gonna tell you, man, I'm proud of all the people who made it through their music, whether it's hip hop, R&B, whatever, because they don't have to go through the things that I went through, and they can rap about stuff and they ain't gotta live that stuff. They was around it, but they don't have to live it. And so, I don't know, man. I was always excited about that, man. And even recently with Nas with the Hip Hop Museum thing that he's doing, that was brilliant, man. Just the fact that he got a hip hop museum right there in Queens that he's gonna have to represent everybody, right? And he put his own money into it, man. They needed that, man. And I can't wait to see it be finished and developed, man. I'm definitely gonna be there looking at it and whatnot. So I'm proud of people when they make it. I like to see people succeed. I don't want people to fall. I don't want people to falter. You can struggle, but I want to see people win. I don't know, today's climate is funny, and I'm not talking about you per se, I'm talking about podcasting. So many podcasters, all they do, Clam, they just want to talk about so much negative and want to see people lose, and they want to criticize your past so much, like as if they ain't had a past. And I don't want to name nobody in particular, right? You got one guy saying stuff like, man, he should have never been let out of jail. He should have died. These guys are crazy. They think people don't change. And then you don't even speak about the fact that you don't even know and look at what a man is doing today and whatnot. Instead, in order to get clicks and boost the dummies that go to his podcast, and I say dummies because you got people who you got people who are subscribers, right? And they know what they want to hear. But then you got some people that subscribe to some of these people, man, and it's like they want to hear the nonsense, the bull crap, the fake stuff, the lies. So many people tell lies as podcasters. I just can't believe it that people would listen to some of these dudes. You feel me? But there's so many podcasters that waste so much time, man, and everything they say be cold lies and I don't even know why people listen to some of these guys.
I hear you, man. I hear you. In early 2000, 50 Cent drops a song called Ghetto Quran. And in this song, he talks about a lot of street famous people, and some people aren't happy about it when it came out. What did you think about it when you first heard it or heard about it?
I heard about Ghetto Quran. I'm just gonna come straight out and say it, man. It didn't bother me one bit, man. He was, in my view, and I know that ain't everybody's view, but in my view, he was giving props to the legends and the people in the street that he grew up around, that he grew up and heard about when he was a kid. And so I ain't had no problem with it at all. I don't to this day. And so, but that's my view, you know what I'm saying? I know, I hear other people may have had issues with it. I never had an issue. That's why you never heard me say nothing. One thing about me, if I got an issue with a problem with something, an issue with something, I'm gonna speak up. I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna get word out there to somebody. I had no problem with it. You know what I'm saying? And so I kind of like the song, if you want to know the truth. You know what I'm saying? And whatnot. Good song. I like it.
Did you ever meet 50 Cent as a kid?
I think I saw 50 Cent as a kid a few times. I definitely saw him with his mother before. Yeah, I definitely saw him with his mom's. But at the time, you know, I know his mother. You know what I mean? She was a hustler. You know, she was good people. You know, I was locked up when his mother passed. You know, and whatnot. But yeah, 50 was a kid when I was out. I got locked up in 1990. I think I was 27. I don't know how old 50 is now. You know what I mean? So if you do the math, and you see that he was a kid, you know what I'm saying, at that time. I don't know his age, so right now.
I think 50 was born in 73, I think.
73, and whatnot.
Oh, no, my bad. He was born in 75 in July. So he would have only been like 15 years old when you went to jail.
Yeah. Yeah, he was 15 years old when I went to prison, so he was a kid at the time. But, yeah. And just so you know, me nor my uncle, we don't got no problem with 50. 50, you know, he did what he had to do, and he's doing what he got to do. You know what I'm saying? I kind of like Power. I like Snowfall too. Snowfall, the writers in Snowfall were really, really, really good. But I like Power, and you know, but the Supreme Team series gonna be better than both of them combined when this is done. Believe me, people gonna learn things for the first time. It's gonna be official. It's gonna be official, and as long as they let me, them writers listen to me and let me guide them a little bit, it's gonna be very, 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 very official. You know.
A lot of people say that 50 Cent based a lot of his Power characters off of guys from the neighborhood, like, you know, yourself and Fat Cat and some of the other guys.
I'm gonna tell you something. He probably did. I mean, I don't doubt it. You know what I'm saying? I think in there he might have put something in there about, we always wore bulletproof vests. We had bulletproof hats, bulletproof vests. We had all that stuff. I can send you a photo of us when we went to Rikers Island and had bulletproof vests on at Rikers Island. So my thing is that when you look at Power, you can see the influence there. You know what I'm saying? And you know, he was very crafty, very creative. You can tell he put himself. You can tell he put a lot into that. It wasn't just the writers. He put a lot into that, of the experiences that he saw, heard, or maybe even lived a few. You know, I give him his props, man. He did his thing.
50 Cent released a movie called Get Rich or Die Trying. And in the movie, there's a character named Majestic, who everybody believed is based on Supreme. Did you see the movie, and what did you think of it?
It took me a while to see that joint. I finally saw it, and that character, whoever the character is, it definitely wasn't Preem though, because Preem, you know, that he didn't do the things that character did in that movie. So, you know, I don't know what he based it on. He may have, he may not have. I don't know, but he could have based it on things that he thought or whatever. I don't know, but that character ain't Preem. You know.
Okay, 50 Cent did an interview a while back, and you posted this clip of this interview on your IG where he says that Preem lived how he actually projected. You know, what was your thoughts when you first seen that clip?
He spoke the truth. What he was trying to say was that, say what you will about Preem, and notwithstanding my feelings for him, the man was a mirror image of what he projected. The way he showed himself is what he really was. And you got to give a man props who can say something like that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people, so nowadays dudes are so phony. People are so phony that they don't speak the truth unless it's beneficial to them, or they don't speak the truth unless they, it's so much phoniness today that nobody's keeping it real. So at least what he said, that to me, that was real, and that's why I put it on my gram, because it was real. And there's a difference between certain people. One thing about Preem is when he says something, he's not going to get out there. Preem will never get on out there and say something that ain't true, or something he don't feel, or something that's not real to him. When we speak, we don't waste our words. We don't mince our words. We don't try to, like me, myself, I don't really care how nobody think about what I say. You're gonna get the truth out of me whether you like it or not. And if it offends somebody, so be it. If it doesn't offend somebody, so be it. We're gonna be as authentic as we can, because that's all we know how to be, is authentic. So I applaud what he said, you know what I'm saying, because he spoke the truth. One thing about Preem, you're gonna get from him exactly what he is. So,
You mentioned being in there with John Gotti. Was there anybody else you were locked up that was famous?
Yeah, I was locked up with a whole bunch of people. Vic Amuso, Joey Molina. We was together in Beaumont. Man, I was with everybody and anybody who got locked up in MCC between the year 1992 to 1995. Every mob boss, every black hustler, you name them, I was in there with them. Every last one of them. I was also with, in USP Coleman, I was with Carmine Persico, right? You know who that is?
Yes, that was.
Yeah, you look like you didn't know who that was.
I'm thinking, man, that was the boss of the Columbos, right?
Right. He was with me in USP Lompoc at the time when it was a USP. It's a FCI now, right? I was with my man. He just got out a little while ago. I forgot his name. Damn, I wish I remembered his name. I don't remember his name, but he just got out a little while ago. Italian. He was with me in the USP Allenwood and whatnot. Yeah, he got out. I forgot his name though. One of the Italians that got out. Good dude. Yeah, I've been around almost everybody, man.
Supreme, unfortunately, gets arrested again, and this time is when he gets convicted and gets his life sentence. But you guys put out a documentary about his arrest. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the documentary, it's the Supreme Truth. That documentary really, and this is the thing about that documentary, people missed, I don't know if they missed it, but the documentary was about Preem's case and how he was railroaded. And of course, you got to speak about how he got the case and stuff like that. And he was denied his right to testify in his own defense. He had a death penalty lawyer, and the death penalty lawyer, his only concern was for Preem to beat the death penalty. He wasn't concerned with him beating the case itself to be found not guilty. So he never asked the questions that he needed to ask in order to get Preem free. And also, most importantly, there was a witness that Preem never knew his whole life, a dude named Terrence Terrell. And this is interesting and it's very important. They put a witness in the case and used him to create a RICO, to turn a murder case that should have been a state case, into a RICO case by using this particular guy. Preem never met the guy, and he ain't got no, if he met the guy, he wouldn't be no problem saying that he knew the guy. You know what I'm saying? He never met the guy. So the guy was able to create the RICO in the case and formulate a RICO case so that Preem can be taken to trial. And that's interesting because I think back to this, and I think back when President Donald Trump was charged with several offenses, and he got indicted. So he got indicted. He was charged with several offenses, and I remember a time when he might have mentioned, or somebody mentioned, one of the people that was on the news mentioning how easy it is to get an indictment, that was speaking up for Trump, how easy it was to get somebody indicted. They was speaking, one of the political people was speaking up on CNN, talking about Trump's indictment. So now Trump becomes president, and now some of the people who might have indicted him and brought charges against him, now they are charged with crimes. And so I look at the grand jury system in federal and state. It's so easy to get somebody indicted. And I'm not talking about whether someone's guilty or not. That's for trial. That's for a jury to determine. But it's so easy to get someone indicted. We've been going through that stuff for years. It's easy to throw a witness in front of the trial, in front of the grand jury, and get somebody indicted. It's so easy to throw a person in front of a few grand jurors. All you need is a certain amount to say, we find a bill, we want to hold this person indicted for trial. It's like easy. A judge back in the days had a saying that he said you can indict a ham sandwich. That came from a judge, a well-known judge back in the days. It's so easy to get somebody indicted, and I believe I don't think that the prosecutors who got arrested, who got Trump indicted, I don't believe they're gonna get convicted. But I think he's trying to show society how easy it is to get someone indicted on an offense. It's just so easy. It doesn't take a lot. And so now the prosecutors who was prosecuting him are now facing prosecution themselves. And so it's crazy because we've been going through that stuff for the longest. So my uncle's in there with a witness he never met who created a RICO, and now he's facing life sentence. It should have been a state case. We're not talking about, who guilty or not guilty. We're really talking about the way in which people get prosecuted, the evidence that people use to prosecute people. Man, anybody can be indicted. Even if they didn't do a crime, they can be indicted. As long as you got somebody to go in there and say, yo, he did this with me. It's just that simple.
Sheesh. Well, hopefully he'll get a second try at everything and, at least get to fight his case the proper way.
Yeah, that's what we hoping.
Yeah, man.
And thank you for bringing that up too, because a lot of people, we put a documentary out that's 1 hour and 6 minutes long, and they horn in on one little thing because he outed somebody as a confidential informant, and whatnot. They talk about that instead of talking about the actual stuff that we want them to talk about. And then, by the way, the documentary is like that. It's really good. We're getting rave reviews on that thing. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. It is. I watched it. Yeah. It's definitely dope and worth your time, for sure.
Yeah, and thank you for the Supreme Truth. Thank you for mentioning it, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Also, in the documentary, The Supreme Truth, it says that Jay-Z warned Supreme to distance himself from the streets. What was your thoughts on that?
Supreme should have listened. That's my thoughts. If he did, and I believe he did, I'm saying? People say things. There's no reason for Jay to say that if it wasn't true. If Jay said that, if Jay-Z said that, he definitely did that. So
it was said in the documentary. So
right, I know, it's in the documentary. He said it. It's true. He did warn Preem, about the streets. He not warn him, but he just told him, you all over the place, man. Fall back. You know what I'm saying? And so, but things is, it's just, life is life, man. He heard it, probably did, I wish he would have took heed to that,
I did see a rumor on the internet that Jay-Z offered him a job when he got out of prison.
I don't know if he did or not. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if he did or didn't. He may have, I've been out of prison. I ain't been offered no job by nobody. But I find my own way. So I don't know if he did or didn't. He may have, you know what I'm saying? But, he probably did,
What do you think about Bill Courtney? I seen him in the documentary.
I think Bill Courtney put together a case and found a witness that would lie. This dude, Terrence Terrell, is one of the worst criminals in the world. He was facing some serious stuff. He would say anything to get him around serving that time. And that's the problem with these rats and these informants and confidential informants. They will say anything to prevent themselves from serving time. And it's hard to even believe them, some of them. And so Bill Courtney he found a willing witness to use to turn a state case that should have been a state case into a federal RICO case. And that's what he did. And he himself is trying to shop his story and books and all kind of stuff. So, you know, he was a master manipulator when it came to finding that witness. He did his job.
There's a video of you with Pappy Mason at what looks like a party or a club. What was your relationship like with him?
I think I met Pap when I came home from prison in '84. I met him, and he was with Cat, and you know, that was Cat's lieutenant, you know, one of his strongest lieutenants. I was Preem's strongest lieutenant. Basically, he's the captain, I'm a captain with them, each a person. And that was the size of it, that I knew him from the street. I knew of him in prison, but we never got to see each other in prison before. But, you know, and that was that. Probably at a party. Must have been at my party, maybe, I think. It was at my party, he was there, I think. And that's where that picture come from, yeah. As a matter of fact, it might have been at Preem's party. I'm not sure which party it was. It was either at Preem's party or my party, I'm not sure.
Did you see the video? You want me to show you? I can show you the video.
Yeah, let me see it, so I can tell you for sure. I don't know if I've seen that video before. Yeah, that was my party. Yeah. Where you see Pap at? I don't see him. He on the stage? Yeah, that was, yeah, there you go right there. Yeah, that was my party. Yeah. Yeah. Send me a copy of that video when you get a chance, man.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, no problem. It's on YouTube, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's on YouTube? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that was at my party back in 1985, I think. Yeah.
Do you have any regrets from everything that you've done and been through and growing up and everything?
After 34 and a half years, almost 35 years, knowing that my daughter was 8 years old when I went to prison, and when I came home, she was 42 or 41, 42. What man wouldn't have regrets? My parents are older now, they're 87, 85. I could have lost them. I lost both my grandparents while I was locked up. They died when both my grandparents on both sides of my family, maternal and paternal, both passed away while I was incarcerated. What man wouldn't have regrets? I wasted a lot of time in prison and lost family members. And not only that, I think back to when I was a kid, and I realized that I didn't have to do some of the things that I did. I didn't have to sell drugs. I didn't have to do a lot of things. I chose that lifestyle. But I looked at the neighborhood and I looked at people struggling, and I said, I'm not going to struggle like some of these people. I'm not going to struggle like my parents and them. But truthfully, the struggle is what defines you. My mother and father right now living excellently. They ain't never sold a drug in their life. Worked all their life. And they living excellently. And so, you know, as I think of it, man, it's so much you can do with your life, man. You don't have to go to the streets. You know what I mean? Now there's some people who had it harder than me. And you got people who the struggle for them is very hard. Some people ain't got food in their refrigerator. And I'm gonna be honest with you. You got some people who grandparents are taking care of them. You know what I mean? I don't want to knock nobody for what they do, for choosing to go into the street life, but I want to show them what you can sacrifice by making a bad decision or a bad choice. As far as me, there's a lot that I regret, and I don't want to spell everything out. You know what I'm saying? But of course, I regret a lot of things. I have so much remorse in my heart for things. I just don't always speak about it. You know what I mean? Those are private moments that you keep within yourself. You know what I mean? But sometimes I wish I would have did like my brother and my brothers and my sister. You know, they living good too. They ain't never sold a drug in their life. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of choices you can make, and you just gotta find what you're good at. You gotta take your time in life and discover your greatness, because everybody got something in them that they can be great at. You just gotta find it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I have a lot of regrets. You know what I'm saying? But I'm home now, and I'm living a different lifestyle. So that's where I'm at with it. You know.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Okay, what was your relationship like with Nas?
Nas like a little brother to me, man. I call him my brother from another mother, man. I say that because from the moment we spoke, the very first time we spoke, we was on the phone. I think I was in USP Allenwood, and we was able to arrange for a phone call, and we kicked it, and we were talking about legends and being legendary. And we was talking about the difference between a legend and being legendary. And I remember telling Nas, I said, you know, I might be a legend, good or bad, for the right reason or the wrong reason, whatever. But I said, you legendary, Nas. And I said, you know what makes you legendary? He said, what? I said, what makes you legendary is I go to South Africa, they won't know who I am. But if you go to South Africa, the minute you get off that plane, they gonna know who you are. So you legendary. And there's a difference. And he agreed, you know what I'm saying? And that was a good conversation. And ever since then, man, me and him has been very respectful towards each other, very close. But he ain't the only one. There's several others that I look up to and admire the way that they live in and the way that they handle their affairs, how they treat their families, how they treat the men around them or the people they deal with. You know, Nas, Jada, LL Cool J even. It's a couple of people that I have a lot of respect for, that I know personally. And they're not afraid to talk with a man like me. They're not afraid to reach out to a man like me. You know what I mean? And whatnot, so yeah.
Yeah, I think I just seen a video of you and Jada together on just like a quick little video.
Yeah. One time he was giving a thing for prostate cancer or something, the screening, and I went over there, support their cause, and seen them over there. I like Jada. Preem like Jada too. Preem like Jada. I like Jada. I like Jada's when he rap. I mean, I like the style of rap. I like a whole bunch of people, man. You'd be surprised the people I like, the people I listen to. You know, of course, you know, and whatnot.
So you got to see rap from the very beginning.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on it when you started to see the evolution of hip hop?
Man, I knew it was here to stay. I should have left the streets alone and got with the program. That's what I should have did. I should have left the streets alone and got with the program, because that was the way out right there. But you know, things happen for a reason, man. You know what I mean? There's always, like, somebody told me recently, right? You know, there's always a silver lining in almost anything you do. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, but yeah, I knew rap was gonna be here. I knew rap was gonna be like something that have everybody like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? So it's just that I stayed in that drug game. I continued in what I was in. We used to have house parties back in the days. We used to have house parties and go to the clubs, and you seen it. You seen everything forming right there. You know what I mean? You know, I got some friends of mine who was actually DJing and they didn't stick to it. They got in the drug game. They just stuck to it. They might have been known. You know what I'm saying? We had friends of ours used to rap at the parties and stuff, but they didn't even know we was rapping. They just talking at parties. And they got in the drug game instead of staying on that. You feel me? There just was something natural to do. You know what I mean? So, you know, shit, James Brown, for real, he used to rap in his music when he talked, when he sung. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just I'm just happy that people didn't have to go my route. You know what I mean? So, you know.
Man, that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Well, Prince, I really appreciate you taking the time and doing the interview, man. This was a really dope interview. I know that the fans are really gonna appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, let me know if you need me back, man. I'll come back and man, I'm gonna say this to you, Cam. I don't like to go to too many places, right? Like I told you, I'm gonna start my own podcast. But I appreciated talking to you, the dudes from Thanks for Asking. Like, it's different, man. I don't know, y'all different, man, the way y'all question people and talk to people. You try to get into little substance and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So I appreciate the platform, man. And I look forward to one day questioning you, man, if you let me. You hear me? For real.
Yeah, okay. I haven't started doing interviews, and there's a lot of people who want me to start doing interviews, but I will definitely.
Yeah, because
I'll do that for sure when I start doing
you
interviews.
you interviewed a lot of people, so you know you got a good platform, man. You know.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
All
man.
right.
Thanks, bro.
Peace, man. Yep.
Later, man.
Yep.
What's up? This is Cam Capone. We got more content like this coming soon, so hit that like button, subscribe, and stay locked in to Cam Capone News.